For many years, one man dreamed of discovering a secret garden hidden in his backyard. And one day he did discover the garden and was extremely surprised to find it in his backyard. A certain king tried to send out a silent message calling for a man not blinded by bluntness nor seduced by the mundane and drag. Within each station's normal broadcast range, transmission and reception are essentially the same thing. I don't get it, he said. Then you didn't send it, he replied. Thought one man, I'll become conscious of my mind and mindful of my consciousness. I'll become aware of attention and attentive to awareness. I'll become alert to my thoughts and thoughtful of alertness. I'll do whatever it takes, whatever you want to call it, to get this thing accomplished. The path itself is simple. It's the walking it that's complex. Anyone who identifies in you any non-physical problem can never cure it. They can certainly offer to treat it, but can never cure it. 'Tis physicians sans skills who own you press pills. In the collective mental life of man, the job of institutions is in large part to identify admirable goals to which all should aspire, and then help obscure the fact that they're unachievable. Only doctors who know won't tell you where to go. Where you can stay at, a poem. You may live in a daze, you may live in a dream, but things never are quite as they seem unless you live in a daze and live in a dream, and then it doesn't matter anyway. The end. When he heard that the simpler fringe elements of one civilization say that they did not find its mainstream art to have any relevance to their lives, one man thought, their lives don't have any relevance to their lives. In an elephant parade, only pachyderms are welcome. Only pachyderms feel at home. In an elephant parade, only pachyderms survive. This is true not only externally, collectively, regarding man's physical life, but also controls the conduct of his inner individual mental life as well. And it is from this comfortable, safe, secure, and normally unnoticed position that the few struggle to free themselves. For to them, what they understand of life has no relevance until their own relationship to understanding has no relevance. Papa, I cannot see the clowns and acrobats from here. Is it the fault of the clowns and acrobats or of where I stand? Right here in the midst of me, where you have so often warned me about. The escape from ordinary consciousness is the only overcoming of a problem in which there was no problem to begin with. And a man responds, well, no wonder it sounds so simple, but it is so difficult to do. Nay, countered his partner. That's why it sounds so difficult to do, but is actually so simple. And 'tis a shame there's not a third voice to speak up in the matter. Now for today's science fiction myth. On a faraway world in a faraway galaxy is a place where exists a third voice. Believe it or eat pulpwood. The son of a mystic asked a librarian, are some writings more substantial than others? And the bookmaster squinted an eye at the lad and replied, aren't you the son of a mystic? And when the boy nodded in the affirmative, the librarian said, then I won't answer that. One day the king turned to his main man legal advisor and said, who knew should we include in our criminal class? And the counselor rubbed his chin for a bit, then replied, how's about we include anyone smarter than your grace? And at first the king squealed with delight, but then after thinking about it for a moment, he wasn't so sure it was such a neat, agreeable, and flattering idea after all. If you're impressed by the vigor with which the heart, the lungs, the stomach, and genitalia will protect themselves, where do you get a fresh, good view of the mind in such action? Why do you think the skull's the strongest bone in the body? Oh, I'm sorry, Papa. Did you just ask me a question? One man fell into a vat of goo, but never did notice. Would you? Before we bring you this next news item, first this additional definition of civilization, life and local camouflage. Now on to the main story. One of the inherent talents of man's institutions is that they can treat their impossible goals as fait accompli, and man will buy it. How does the normal mind spell entertainment? That's easy. It's the workings of other people's normal mind. And a man turned to his brother and said, well, that doesn't sound like much entertainment to me. And his other half responded, yes, but you only say that now that it's been pointed out to you in that manner. And his brother damn near heard this and damn near learned something from this. By the way, damn near, according to some maps, is a mirage village somewhere between Paris and Istanbul. One man couldn't go anywhere unless someone was with him, not counting himself. The less a man individually perceives of any significance to life, the more he takes it personally. In a metaphorical milieu, we could describe ordinary man's mental take on life as that of an artist, a self-centered, subjective view, and that of the more alert as a scientist, more cold-blooded and removed. There is, by the by, a place beyond metaphor where the two merge anew. And now, a two-handed attempt at metaphorical rhyme. Having blank paper doesn't mean you have to write. Having a mind doesn't mean you have to think. Having a bottle doesn't mean you have to, hey, wait a minute. Having a mind does mean you have to think. Oh, sorry. Then never mind. Never what? Sorry. See, I was doing both hands. As reward for having rendered some assistance to a certain genie, a man was offered the choice of either having simple feet and complex shoes or simple hair and a complex head. And after pondering the matter for a bit, he asked the genie, exactly what is the difference? And the magical one replied, I guess it's a question of whether you're going somewhere or thinking about going. And the man ruminated on it a bit longer, then said, I suspect this is some sort of trick. And the genie replied, is that a question or a statement? And the man reflected even more on the affair as he kicked at the dirt and pulled on his hair, which the genie took to be his dichotomous reply. From the crowd, a voice cried out, habit will be the death of us all, only to be followed by another voice which shouted back, but without habit would have no life. And the crowd, operating as much as possible as one living entity, took momentary note of itself in light of this, as much as was possible, and was pleased. But now I feel sure no overly obvious moral is necessary regarding how enlightenment is available only to individuals. Institutions are to collective consciousness as life is to the alert individual. Institutions are to collective consciousness as the secret is to those who know. Institutions are to now and always as the future is to the few, and institutions are to normalcy and stability as this kind of stuff is to those kinds of people who are interested in this kind of stuff. One man discovered that he had a kind of floating virus which affected a particular part of his being, and further discovered it could be kept in check by simply watching it. From one view, when the body gets sick, it dies. But as the mind gets ill, it begins to live. Thus it is that liberated, expanded consciousness is beyond all such polarized notions of health. The enlightened understanding of what life is actually about simply is. When referring to ordinary travels, men will often say that getting there is half the fun. But in the mystical adventure, it's even more than that. Beyond all of the nasty things you can say about striving for enlightenment, it's still fascinating in that it may be the sole human activity in which the effort and the accomplishment each offer their own separate pleasures and rewards. Man is held where he is by the very same forces that hold life together. That is, thus he is captive in a prison with no walls, other than those imposed by his own mind. And thus it is the awakening, liberation from the... We'll pretend that we have edited the tape, if not reality. Man is held where he is by the very same forces that hold life together. Thus is he captive in a prison with no walls, other than those imposed by his own mind. And thus is the awakening, liberation from the confinement of illusion. No wonder, said Jailbird 47, it's so hard to get out of here. Why is that, asked number 3? Because we ain't actually in no place. Though that wondrous destination cannot be described, the approaches leading to it can. I thought to narrow back in on how life presents itself as being reality and local conditions and etc. in the external world, and then try right at the very last minute to try and trick you into realizing the same thing is true internally. Let's say, how about a joke and a sociological commentary or observation? How's that sound? Do the latter first. It is a known fact, maybe some of you have had occasion to realize, but it's a known fact about them. There's no discussion. It's not part of their training. But the police can stop 2 different cars for some reason. And they will treat the different people in these 2 different cars in totally different manners. They will treat someone that would seem to be at the fringe element of society, the kind of the underclass, someone outside the mainstream of life. Let's say they stop them and see, the trick to this being a sociological observation and me stooping so low as to even use it is that it's not as it appears to be. Because on the surface you can always explain it away as an ordinary man's mind would explain. Well, there's good reason for them doing this, but try and listen faster. They stop one guy, beat up car, his license plate is out of date. They ask him for ID. He doesn't have any. He left his license at home. He doesn't even have a billfold with him. They look, and there's some suspicious looking paraphernalia laying on the floor that looks like you might use to ingest illegal substances. And they decide that they're going to run a check on the car, run a check on him. They will place the man in strict confinement. That is, they'll normally handcuff him and probably put him in, his hands behind his back, into the car, maybe even his feet, but they'll sit him down like in the back of their car, and you are rendered, for all intents and purposes, helpless. Now, they could explain that, but now consider this. They could stop a man in a very nice car, very expensive car, a man with a suit, and let us say that they even look down and they see what appears to be pot-smoking paraphernalia laying on his floor, the floorboard of his car. And it could be even worse, that he may not be able to show that he has up-to-date state-required insurance. So there's several reasons, very similar to the man that, my first example. As a rule, if they decide, we want to check on your car, we want to see exactly who you are, but they will get an impression. Life will have them, make them give an impression that they will not be that concerned over physically restraining the guy. The question is why? And I'll answer right quick, and don't take the obvious one that the first guy just looked suspicious. That's why I tried not to overdo it, and that was the reason for my little preface. Because I know under ordinary conditions, someone hearing this, go, well, the guy's suspicious. Your own description is, he's driving a beat-up car and this and that. But now listen, because it's going somewhere else. The fringes of society, and you knew it was a joke when I said a sociological commentary, but it's normally called the underclass, the that's why it's normally called in sociology, now I think about it, but I was just going to call it the fringe elements. People outside the mainstream. The authorities, the state, in this case represented by the police, will physically keep control of the guy. As long as they have some reason, they're suspecting they may put him under arrest, write him a ticket, do something. But even while they're there making the decision, they will physically restrain him. You can count on it. They will handcuff him up, put him in the car, but they'll make sure he's not going anywhere while they decide what to do. Whereas the second example, the guy distracts him as obviously, without any doubt. He's got enough ID, he's an attorney, an accountant. He's somebody there in the community. And he's got a billfold full of all the places he belongs to, the professional organizations, etc. And they look at him and the car, and they won't be that concerned. They maybe go back to the car and discuss it if it's a couple of cops, and they may just let him stand out there on the highway, or they may let him sit in his car. Now the question is, getting past the obvious, is why? Before we get to the really why. Those on the edge of society, which is to say those on the extreme, the outskirts of civilized behavior, that is, on the outskirts of their mind being more in control of their being than their body, those people are only held through force normally. And I'm going to make it simple. Whereas this later, my second example, they don't worry about the man because he is being held already by the system. They understand, even though they never discuss this, and it's not part of their training, I don't mean that, but they know, because life makes them know. It's like efficiency. They know that this guy is not going to get in his car. Or they might leave him behind the wheel and say, well, you stay there, we're going to write a check and make sure you're insurance. We're just going to write a check, you just wait here. And he goes, okay. Even if he did drive off, which he's not, but even if he did, where's he going to go? Now, assuming that what I told you was correct, that all of his ID showed, where is the man going to go? He owns some big business. They recognize the business. They recognize the part of town in which he lives. It's the upper class part of town. Where is the man going to go? Even if he's confronted now with several $1,000s worth of fine, or he might be facing 6 months in jail on some pot charge. That could be something that he strictly does not want, but the point is he's not going anywhere. Where can he go? He is not going to suddenly leave town, go disappear and change his name over a $5,000 fine, over 6 months in jail if he actually had to do it. Whereas the first guy, they know he might turn off, he might just take off and run through the woods and leave his car. He might just run for it. And they have probably every reason to believe, based upon past experience and just looking at him, that whatever address he gave them, he may not live there. It may be somebody else's ID. If he does live there, it's probably just, well, he may say, well, that's where my wife lives. It may be some girl that he knows slightly. They understand that they've got somebody here that they can't really hold through the force of the system itself. That is, the person will not feel obliged to stay there. If they say, wait here in your car, we're going to check on this, him go, yeah, right. Then chances are, if he's going to look up and get any idea about how fast his car will go, what chance he's got to get away, or as I said, he might, if they pull the keys out and they say, wait in your car, that son of a bitch will probably take off running through the woods. Because he's got nothing to lose in a sense. And they may never find him again. They realize that. He may just disappear. And if he goes and disappears and leaves town to sell, I'll move down and see my great aunt down in Florida. Not just leave this place. He can do it, and all of this just fits. They understand that. Whereas the first guy, they do not have to physically restrain him. It is the restraint of the system in which he is such an integral part. He cannot leave it. You understand that? I was going to give you a joke to go with it before I get to it. The joke is, it's an old joke. And for years I thought about rewriting it. In fact, but it has been begging for years and years. Guy's staying at a bar in a hotel. This girl walks up next to him. He says, can I buy you a drink? She looks at me, no. He said, well, how about I buy a bottle and we go up to my room? She said, leave me alone. She looks at him. He says, she said, I know what you're after, just forget it. And she tried to look off. And he said, well, pardon me, one more thing. He said, let me ask you this. She said, leave me alone. I know all you want to do is get me up to the room. It's sex you're talking about. And he said, all right, you're true. Yeah, that's correct. He said, but tell me this. would you go upstairs and have sex with me right now for $10,000? She says, you're crazy. He said, no, I'm serious. For $10,000, would you actually go up and have sex with me? Just, I'll never see you again. Just go up there and we don't even go through all this bullshit. And he makes her think he's serious. She says, well, yeah, I guess. Well, all right. He says, all right, how about 5,000? He says, I'm talking about 5,000 cash right now. So she goes, well, all right. And he says, okay. How about $10? And she says, what do you think I am? And he said, we've established that. We're just dickering over the price. This, we're circling the wagon on life. This is related to my example of the two types of people being stopped by the police. Let's see which one we get to first or last. Let's go back to the first one. I assume from what I could see from the audience that you did understand what I was saying, that literally the police out on the highway could take one man and probably just from looking at him, assuming the police were as sane and genetically sound as he was, and they were just ordinary people. But along with the kind of car and everything else, and his ID and the way he was dressed and the way he acts, they understand that they do not have to physically restrain that man. The system in which he operates, which is the mainstream of life at the mechanical level, the system restrains him. They can leave him in his car and say, we're going to run a check on you, and just sit there and we'll be back in a minute. He goes, all right. And they walk to their car. They don't even turn around and look around because they know he's not going anywhere. Where can he go? Nowhere. Whereas someone not right in the mainstream, the fringe, the underclass, but the fringe, they know that they have to physically restrain those people off of most anything. If they don't even have a charge yet and they just say, wait in your car, we want to run a check on your car, they learn very quickly. Don't even do that. Because the guy may just leave and they run a check on all his car and all after they catch him and find out the car's not stolen, his license is all right, and then they go, what the hell did you run for? And those kind of people may go, well, I don't know, why'd you stop me for? You know, just I don't like it. They just turn their head for a second, they're gone. This is the same situation. This is exactly how it operates with a man's mind. This is the way people are held consciously within a herd. It is the way the collective consciousness of humanity works. It does not require physical restraint. It does not require a continual assault by people telling you that you should think in a certain way. Once you are part of the ordinary mainstream of life, that you were born genetically sound, including neurally, and you grow up under a fairly reasonable mainstream environment, so you find yourself then an adult person, and you're ordinary, you're sane. You are held by a system just as much as my man in that $100,000 car who owns a business or is a big shot locally in politics. The police, if they decide that they're going to arrest him, once they've stopped him, they got his name, know who he is, they can turn their back, they can leave him sitting in the car because he can't go anywhere. There is nowhere to go. He cannot run. A man's mind, an ordinary man's mind, cannot run. You ask somebody, when you start any sort of discussion about how free you can be to consider unusual ideas, or could you consider that certain things that you think about are incorrect, or even things that you're convinced is true and proper could be otherwise. And people will start off in theory and they go, yes. Because in theory, my big shot attorney or businessman in the community, they leave him in his car, and in theory, yeah, he sits there with the keys. This engine could be still running. All he's got to do is go and take off. Yeah, he can do it, but he can't do it, and he knows he can't do it. He can physically do it, and then to say that he can't do it, then I guess we could come up with a different description, but you could probably do it yourself now. People, that's the same way that you talk to people about how free they are mentally. What can they conceive of? And they will go, anything. That's the beauty of the mind. I can think anything I want to. Doesn't mean I'll necessarily pursue it or adopt it as one of my beliefs, but I can consider anything. Go ahead, tell me something weird and I'll listen to it. I can consider it. No, they can't. They can't go anywhere. Contraire, if you need me to point it out, to carry my example, the other part of my example into this area, Then the fringe element, the guy driving no beat-up car with no plates and no insurance, no ID in his pocket, they know. Cuff that man until we decide what to do. Because they know if they turn their back, he's gone. Even if they don't know why yet, they just know. It's of no great consequence, but to show you the comparison that still fits, that is the fringe of society. That is those who would be engaged in criminal activity and are adjudicated to be so mentally unstable as that they should be set apart from everyone else. They simply are not locked into the system. They do not feel any allegiance. They don't feel any obligation. They don't feel restrained by the system. Contrary, they normally feel rebellious against it. Their feeling is, screw the system. And the system understands, that is the mainstream of life, understands that these people are not to be trusted. Now how about my joke? Everybody did get the punchline. He says, well, you go upstairs and have sex with me for $10, coming down from 10,000. And she finally gets in a huff and says, what do you think I am? And he says, oh, no, we've established that. That's not the question. No, we're dicking over the price. In other words, she's saying, what do you think I am, a whore? Which she, to begin with, you understand from my story the way it was going, she was a very non-whorish. She was not a prostitute. She was a woman waiting there, just an ordinary, decent, middle-class, middle-of-the-road woman. And so now she's hollering, what do you think I am, a whore? And he's pointed out, we've already established that. That's not the question. The question is now, how much? Does anybody see any connection between that and the establishment of one's mental condition? Do you not see? Because people turn to life constantly. They never think about it in this way. But every time people are criticizing life, and it doesn't matter how responsibly, how educated sounds the critique, what they're doing is admitting that they've been had. Or I put it to you, try it another way. They're asking life by the criticisms that people have of life and the ordinary structures, the institutions, the general belief systems, the general thought patterns of people. People are continually, individuals turning to life, not directly, but they turn to life camouflaged as other things, other people, institutions, ideas, and they're hollering to life, what do you think I am? Remembering the tacit part of that joke, what do you think I am, a whore? Life doesn't have to answer that. Life would do like I did with the guy at the bar. He went, you're wasting my time. We've established that. You waited too long. Just because in the joke, the woman would agree to go up and have sex for $10,000. Then it came down right quick to $10, and now she is in a, shall we say, a fashionable huff. What do you think I am? But see, she's already admitted what she was. Everybody has already admitted, before you ever heard the joke, before you ever had the possibility of doing otherwise, which there was none, but everyone has already become a whore to life, to collective consciousness. And I know the joke can sound somewhat abrasive by me throwing in the words whore, but you have become a prostitute, you have become a, how about camp follower? That sounds a bit better. Doesn't have quite the edgy. You become a camp follower to collective thinking. You had no choice. You were suddenly find yourself at some age, you're conscious enough to speak, and you find yourself standing in a strange hotel lobby bar, at a bar, and this guy turns to you. This institution, this family, this mother, life at the collective level, turns to you, and you became a whore, a camp follower. Then later in life, what appears to be, at the general level, people rebelling against life, people who would aspire to be the common conception of artiste, people who believe that, or ranging from commonly perceived artiste in the sense of being rebels and critics of the mainstream, the bourgeoisie of life intellectually, all the way from that to people believing that they're involved in some mystical quest. It includes them all. They start out, and all the criticisms amount to no more than them saying to life, well, what do you think I am? And of course, life does not engage in the kind of point-blank joshing as reflected by my retelling of that joke. So life does not do this to you verbally. But people are continual by all their criticisms, by the belief that something is seriously wrong with life, or something life is treating you in an abject manner, totally undeserved, totally capricious. And the feeling is, well, what do you think I am? And life just does not have time or the inclination to do it. But if it did, which it does in operation, it does de facto, is life is saying, well, wait a minute, we've established that. You know, don't come along here at the age of 20 or 30 or whatever the age is and holler at me like, hey, who do you think I am? Well, I can't resist. If I have to, maybe I should push it back a little bit. Do you understand, to parallel, to track my joke, or the joke, it is as though, to begin with, when you first, let's take it out, at least take it to the level of you people theoretically, of people who would be interested in trying to understand what life's about. It's like originally when you started asking the questions to your mother, father, priest, rabbi, teacher, somebody about, you know, Daddy, what's the meaning of life? Or why does such and such things happen? But, you know, what's the meaning of life? What's going on here? And at first it's as though the sources of which you inquire, of which you seek extraordinary information. With you, back then, it wasn't extraordinary, it just seemed plain. Just ask, well, what's the meaning of life? Like the old jokes about, why is the sky blue? If that seems, if some of you are beginning to feel chagrined and think, wait a minute, I never asked my father the meaning of life. Okay. You ask him how the league back then could never seem to win a World Series. You would ask your father, why is up, up, and down, down? And your father tried his best to give you some story, and you went, yeah, but why? And he goes, well, because they can't be, you know, up can't be down, and down can't be up. And he keeps driving, you go, well, why? And he goes, well, look, you know, up is one thing. It's like that. And you go, yeah. And he goes, and down's like that. And he's driving. He said, so, you know, up's up and down's down. What else is there? And you go, yeah, but why? And not singling out anyone's father for the problem, because it's life, and it's you originally asking, like, will you go to bed with me? And life goes, well, now you got to watch this because it gets tricky. Well, you ain't got to watch. And it's like life goes, no. And you say, well, how about if I give you everything I got? How about $10,000? And life might go, well, okay. That's one version. But now I can reverse it. Can you follow where that goes? But then you can take the same story and reverse it right there where we started. And it's as though life, that you ask life, what's the meaning of you? Or why is up, up? And life says, I'll tell you for $10,000. And you go, all right. And it goes, all right, I'll tell you for $50,000. You go, all right. And it goes, all right. It'll take $2 million. And you say, I don't have that much. What do you think I am? And life says, well, I know what you are. You're a sucker. It doesn't say that, but it says, I know what you are. That's not the question. The only question is now, how much is it going to take? There's still a third version. Go back to the easy one. That's my opinion. I'll go back to what should be the easier one. Is once you accept the energies that run the collective consciousness of your time and place. And remember, when I say accept, you only accept positively half of them. Half of them you disagree with, but you're still accepting them. That's like just because you hate all movies, notice, you still go to them. As long as you accept what happens in your mind as being a reflection of what is mentally possible, you have become, in a sense, a whore. You have been seduced by the collective mental operations of life. And for you to then want to whine about it, for you to then want out, for you to then holler, oh, who do you think I am? Well, what do you think I am? Was the woman in the joke. And the man says, no. That's not the question. We've established that. Then it's you saying to life, well, how can you believe I'm this dumb? How can you try and pull this kind of stuff on me? Or why? What it amounts to is every question that seems to be of a negative inquiry. All of it is the basis about, how can you do this? What do you think I am? In all sorts of forms, like how dumb do you think I am? How undeserving do you think I am? How dense do you think I am? How foolish do you think I am? How long do you think I'll put up with this? No matter what the question is to life, it amounts to you saying to life, well, what do you think I am? Friends, that's not the question. If you're operating from an ordinary mental level, the question is just absolutely irrelevant to say, what do you think I am? That's silly. That's been established. The only thing that's possibly in question is, how much does it take to get you upstairs? Or in the case of the mind, how much did it take to get you where you are? How much did it take to get you this dumb? How much did it take to get you this limited? How much did it take to get you this satisfied with the ordinary condition? And yet people, the mind will still hear that and go, well, that's not a valid statement, because I am not satisfied with my condition. I'm trying to improve it. You can't improve the life of a whore. If you've been had, you've been had. Well, you don't do up the price. Will that help? I know it got a little bit obscure, but how about this? The reality of it is based upon the old, again, the religious ideas, or even the ordinary wisdom ideas, ordinary intelligence, about people believing at one level, or at one instance, that they can improve their lot in life, their spiritual, their internal lot in life, their condition, by external means. The old idea being, the obvious one being, well, if I was rich, I'd be happy. And then people get rich and they're not happy. And of course that makes all the non-rich people happy. But it is, somewhat of a downer to go out and work your ass off, or to think, not just rich, if I had a brand new Corvette, my life would be. And you get it, and after a couple of days, nothing has changed. That is the idea of trying to whore your way out of being a whore. And it can't be done. It's not a moralistic thing. It's not that there's some kind of spiritual structure in place that will keep a man from being happy just because he had possessions or seemed to have made some progress in life. But the thing is, you do something on that basis in life, and you're back being the girl in the hotel room, and there it is, you went to all this trouble. And you thought, well, surely this will open my eyes. This will make me happier. The real definition of happier being, or should be to the few, being happier would be to be more conscious. Which is one I threw in the other night. One of the things about the few is, compared to everybody else, as they get to the point they understand there's only one thing that will improve my life. One thing. Now, it doesn't mean, they might say, that doesn't mean if you've got a new Corvette to give away, it doesn't mean I won't take it. It doesn't mean that if you want to give away your winning lottery ticket to me, it doesn't mean I won't take it. But I do know this, there's only one thing that will make me happier. There's only one thing that will improve my life. And I know it. And that's to be more conscious. So that is the ultimate to everybody. It's just only a few ever recognize it. That is the ultimate definition of happiness, is to be more conscious. But back to what it is, what happens at the ordinary level that people do, take a shot at improving their physical, material lot in life on the basis, initially, without question, that this will surely improve me some. You can't really judge, but you think, well, if I do get elected mayor of the town, if I do get a new car, if I can own my own business, whatever it seems to be, something out there externally that is physically possible that seems to have really no relationship to you internally. No sort of spiritual or conscious development. It's just something that's possible. Even dunderheads, people with little education can achieve such as that, so you try it. And even if beforehand, if someone asks you and you say, well, I cannot predict what a change this will make in my life, you operate without any doubt whatsoever that will make some positive improvement. And then when it does not, you're asking again, what do you think I am? And again, life doesn't answer, but it says, well, in a sense, life is saying, well, don't come back and ask me that. You already whored again. You already turned the trick again. Don't come back and ask me, what do you think I am? We know what you are. We know you're not going to run. We don't have to take the keys away from you. We don't have to put you in handcuffs. Sit there in your car. Leave the motor running. We're going back there and really check on your car, check your engine. Anyway, me and my buddy's going back. Let me have your license again. All right, you just wait here. Listen to the radio or something. They walk off. They don't care. The man's not going anywhere. People that holler to life through whatever means, and it's always some form of whine. I know it might sound a bit more sophisticated to call it a critique of life, but it's always a whine of life. It's people hollering, what do you think I am? That is not in question. There is no question of what do you think I am. It's only ordinary people. The drawing I did last night, people believe that they are individuals and that they vary from person to person because of certain attributes they have. They might say personally, certain abilities, certain good character traits, and then they will admit, if they're ordinary mainstream, they'll admit there are certain flaws I do have. I have weaknesses, I have my temper, and etc. But it could be worked out. It can't be worked out. Because as long as you selectively believe that there's something can be done with my mind, not my body, but there's something can be done with me personally, my personality, my mind, my consciousness, there are things selectively that can be done and should be done. There are things that need to be picked out and worked on specifically more than others. That's the difference saying, well, will you be an idiot for $10,000? And you go, well, first you're offended, but you think, God damn, $10,000. You go, okay. And they say, all right, will you be a fool and kind of misled and just for $5,000? And nobody likes, to suddenly be cut in half. It's still $5,000 or $50,000. Pick any figure you want. They start with $100,000. Is that better nowadays? I keep forgetting inflation. And you go, $100,000? Yeah, I'll be an idiot for $100,000. And then it's like life says, all right, how about $50,000? At first you feel like, but then you realize, well, wait a minute. How many chances am I going to get in life? And you go, all right, I will for 50. And then it says, how about for 5? And then suddenly you would get full of vinegar, pride, some form of, you assume, intelligence. And you go, what do you think I am? It's too late. That's the same way as believing that there are certain parts. There are parts of my own consciousness, there are parts of the mind that can be worked on. As long as you believe that, then the circumstances of the collective structure of life itself will keep you sitting there in your car from driving off while the police are back there taking a leak in the woods or back and, telling jokes to each other in their car, and there you sit with the keys. You got this Ferrari, doesn't ever catch you probably, but so what? You can't go. And so life keeps asking, well, how much more will it take for you to stay like you are? How much more will it take for you to go upstairs and get screwed again? How much will it take for you to keep thinking that there are selective areas of your mind, the traffic going through your mind, there are selective areas that you believe are holding you back, ways that you could improve yourself? How much will it take for you to continue to be like that? The double joke is, a form of humor that requires no external laughter, is once you begin to see that, the joke is, as compared to the real joke, the joke that I told you, is that you will prostitute yourself. Everybody becomes a whore for nothing. And so the rest of the joke is kind of a charitable, momentary distraction. Even when I pointed out that I was going to turn it into a metaphor having to do with the way a man thinks and being part of the collective scheme of things, it's still a joke sounded good, or it sounded a little bit more acceptable for me to start out that life says, how much will it take for you to fall in line and be a cow in the herd like everybody else? And well, I don't want to. I want to be a mystic. I want to wake up. I read a book already. I want to know the meaning of life. And life goes, gee, hey, come on, kid. I give you $10,000, to get over that. And you go, all right. And it says 50,000. 100,000. And it says 50. And it says, all right, will you get over that kind of stuff and just go into school and quit asking everybody questions and be an ordinary guy or gal? Will you do it for $5? And you holler, what do you think I am? How insulting to a would-be mystic. And life says, no, too late. We know what you are. We've established that. Now we're just dickering over how much it will take for you to lay down and shut up. The joke, I was going to say at another level, once you understand what I've been doing for the last 50 minutes at one level, then with the few to whom this sort of activity really applies, the kind of joke it's like pathetic turned inside out and sideways. The pathetic joke is that you realize it didn't even take $5 for me to do it. It took nothing. But see, no one else ever realizes that. That is part of, or at the heart of, people's belief that there is still a reality to the possibility, to the verbal possibility, that the environment has helped shape how they think. The whole idea that we are not simply what we're born, that there's all sorts of things happen to me individually. I've been pushed and pulled, and I've been traumatized, and I've had fortuitous events in my life, and some not so fortuitous, and etc. Fortunate. That is the belief that there's been a price that was paid, and there was no price. You went to bed, you went to sleep, you fell into the ordinary line of thinking, and all life had to do was kind of look at you and wink at the bar. That whole joke about, well, you get over wanting to know what the secret of life is for $100,000? Okay. 50? Well, all right. 5? What do you think I am? That sounds like, well, there was some sort of linear progression that sort of life slowly seduced me. What it meant to is like life looked at you, like the old joke about what do you call Alabama foreplay. Get in bed. Life didn't have to go through $100,000, $50,000. It's like life looked at you. I'll go back, I'll stick it into my other creation story. That there you went by. You remember everybody in that one moment, you go by the line, they're on the assembly line, and right there life takes one quick glance at you, like the quality control that the line just stops momentarily every time everybody's created, and life's looking right there and you had a chance. There you were, eyeball to eyeball with life, and most everybody looks off and blinks. That's when, in a sense, you agreed, yeah, I'll screw you. Yeah, I can be head. But it only comes into consciousness, usually 5 or 6 years later, by the time the intellect gets fired up enough that you begin to talk. And there seems to be, or there is to you then, an external structure of such that confines you. That your mother and father, as soon as they learn that you know one word, then they teach you a second word, and as soon as you know 2 words, then they start, no. Then they say, we're going to have to handcuff you. Turn off the engine of your car. That's when the structure starts. But at the ordinary level, what it does is the proper thing. It turns you into a super social creature, as we all know, because there are no other creatures on the planet, even the real herd animals, the social beast. No creature has anything approaching the kind of apparent, as we call it, as you call it, the emotional ties, the kinds of emotional bonding, the kind of non-physical concern and considerations, the charity to which you will show your fellow man. But that is impossible without there being a kind of structure that holds things together, without the heart of humanity being so held that the police can be very likely going to arrest you and leave you sitting there in your car with the engine running while they go back to their car and do whatever the hell they're doing, and they know you're not going to leave because life knows you're not going to leave. You have been seduced. You have already admitted, yes, I'm a whore. And the rest of your life you can keep hollering like every time something really cheap happens, something that gets your mind all in a tangle, something that gets you completely upset anew. And you continue hollering, what do you think I am? How much of this do you think I'm going to put up with? You don't know how silly it is. Think back to the joke. There's the only reason I brought the joke. Did I not lay on the joke enough? The guy goes from $50,000 to $10,000 to $5. You go upstairs with me and go to bed with me for $5, and she goes, what do you think I am? Now that I've done enough, do you see how silly that is? What do you mean, what do we think you are? They did everything but come out and say it. You understand? For her to say, what do you think I am? Of course, what she's saying, what do you think I am? A $5 whore? Well, what she really thought she was saying, if we jumped in and turned this into a kind of social situation that would happen in life, what she is really saying is, what do you think I am? A whore? But she only thought that once it got to be $5. And the guy says, wait a minute. We've established you're a whore. You've admitted it. We just didn't use the word. As soon as you said, yeah, I'll go upstairs with you for $100,000. What you said was, I'm a whore. But that's the way circumstances operate. Even the joke probably wouldn't have been funny. It'd be harder to ever get to the punchline if you'd done the whole same setup, and he, tries to buy her a drink. She says, no, I'm waiting on somebody. He said, well, how about we get a bottle if you don't like this place? Go to my room. I've got a room. She says, hey, I know what you're up to. I'm not going up to your room. You're just talking about sex. I got no, leave me alone. And if you turn around and said, hey, all right, let me ask this. How would you like to become a whore? Well, you laugh now, but if you'd started the joke that way, you can't hardly get anywhere. I mean, you could finally get there, but it really interferes with the flow of the joke. Do you hear me? And I'm not just playing with words. It would actually ruin the joke. Go back and think. He turns to her and he says, wait a minute. How would you like to become a whore? It would be extremely difficult in any sort of poetic manner, in any kind of rhythmic manner, to get to the punchline after that. You still could. But see, he didn't say that. That has to be unsaid. He just says, well, will you go upstairs with me? Would you go upstairs and have sex for $50,000? And she considers, well, if that's a real offer, I would. I got to admit it. You just don't say the word. People believe I'm an individual. I have a free mind. No, you're a whore. It's just we never have to say that. Think, why do you go to college? Why do you pursue any education of your own volition, not your family making you, which is, it just shows you're a whore. If there'd been anything to you, all of you would have run from kindergarten. They would have had to handcuff you there. I guess that's getting extreme here for the final few minutes, but in a sense it's a fact. Or to put it another way, not necessarily physically run, although I'm not discounting that. But you would have done this internally by the time you were 5 or 6, probably before you even got to Head Start or kindergarten, whatever they call it nowadays. And you kept asking everybody, what's the meaning of life, and etc. And you realize they went, no, we don't. That's not what we're here for. We're going to teach you the ABCs, and you're going to have to learn to read and write, and then there's books on philosophy and stuff, and you get older and you can read it. At then, the age of 5 or 6, you'd have realized, I'm going to run for it. You'd have realized, screw this, they're trying to turn me into a whore. You would have left then a real mystic. And I'm not saying it never happens. They would have had to handcuff you, if not physically, figuratively. You would have been, back to my other story, you would have been the kind of person in that car that the police would say, wait a minute, we can't leave this kid for a minute. He's going to be done for. Because you immediately turn into a whore. You just never say the word. But what I was getting at, think about, even after that, under ordinary conditions, if you go out and pursue your own education, or when you go out and read a book, when you decide to go pursue someone else's thoughts, what are you doing? Well, it sure doesn't sound nice to say, well, I'm going off a whoring I will go. Well, I even got the tense wrong. It's not a whoring I will go. It's, well, yeah, it could be. It's a whoring I will go. But you know, under any ordinary conditions, you see somebody walking down the street on the way to the library with their library card, and you say, what are you doing? They're going, well, I'm going off a whoring, or I'm going... There's somebody, you say, what are you doing now after high school since I saw you? You go, well, I finally got into Harvard. I'm in med school. I'm getting my doctorate in philosophy. Nobody's going to say, oh, you became a whore. That's it, though. Except life is decent enough. The structure is arranged in such a way that's never pointed out in that manner. But that's exactly what thinking anything that ordinary people think, either pro or con, that's what you're doing. But the mind being operating on the basis of polarized energy so that you can, in spite of what I say. If I say, well, you're a whore, if you accept mental reality as it's presented, as everyone else does. In other words, if you're sane and normal, and I say you're a whore, I say that you're in a daze. And the mind goes, well, that is absolutely insane, because I don't think what everybody else thinks. I'm not a whore. Now, if I just believed what everybody else believes, I would be, which people get by with that. Think about it. If I believed everything everybody else believes, how could you do that? Because everybody doesn't believe the same thing. But people will go, well, I disagree with what you say. You're wrong. I mean, you're demonstratively wrong because I do not agree with what everyone else thinks. And I could go, oh, probably half the things you hear you disagree with. They go, aha, so you do know. You know I'm not an idiot. Sure you are. That's not in question. It's just how big a degree of an idiot. How little do you understand what a whore you are? How little do you understand how captive you are? And the mind goes, that's not true. Because half of everything I hear, at least half, that's right, at least half of what I hear, not only at least half, no more than half, but at least half of everything I ever hear people say I disagree with. Well, whores will go to bed with people they don't like. That doesn't mean anything. If you're a whore, you're a whore. Ask a prostitute, do you want to go to bed with men that you like? I mean, have nice personalities and you get to know them? Nah. If you're a whore, you go to bed with anybody. And they could say, well, I'm going to tell you the truth. I mean, this is what I do for a living. But I'm going to tell you, at least half the men I go to bed with, if they didn't pay me, I wouldn't give them a second look. That sounds almost admirable. Like, well, at least you're not a run-of-the-mill whore. Well, sure you are. If you listen to the traffic, and you take the traffic as being you, then you're staying at a bar, and no matter who comes up, you're a whore. Half of them you may not go to bed with. Or half of them may not offer enough money, or all of them offer the same amount of money. I can keep running this round and round because there is no way out. They all offer you the same amount of money, but half of them you think, wait a minute, why should I go to bed with somebody I don't like? No, I'll wait on the next guy. And sure enough, there he is right next to you. There is no stop, there is no halt to traffic. It just runs through. And people standing on their porch saying, well, how much of this they disapprove of. And I can't believe that people drive by my house, drive by my porch, driving old cheap cars, making all that kind of noise, doing all these things, these horrible ideas. Ideas are just silly. What do they think I am? Oh, they know what you are. Well, you're one of them. But to look up at life and go, what do they think I am? And life up there in the clouds somewhere goes, no, kid. That ain't the question. That's been established. Oh, we're talking about, how much is it going to take to keep you there, which is the same thing it took to get you there. That's nice to end on a real upbeat note to think not only mentally is everybody a whore, but you're not even a $2 whore. You're a no-dollar whore. It took nothing. It took nothing to finally turn you out, and it took nothing to keep you in the life, as the pimps say. That nobody has to beat you. They don't have to trick you. You became a whore at no price whatsoever, and you simply stayed there in the life at no decrease in the original price paid to get you in the business.